for whatever reason, when we get over to the pins and this little support structure, the naming and the material falls away. So we can assume it's the same 1020 steel. I think the revolve will be pretty straightforward for this, so we'll do a couple of other options for that piece. So new metric part, and we'll go into the front plane. And so this would be my preferred method: L on the keyboard, vertical for construction, infinite length. Place it on the origin, and then now let's go ahead and hit the OK and see if I can back out of this. And as sketched. Okay, so I clicked and everything looks like it did what it was supposed to do. I will, since this has some symmetry to it, I'm not sure what I just picked. Oh, so that's one of my issues with the backing out of it. For whatever reason, I'm still in vertical. So I'm going to hit Control Z a couple times, just get out of it. And when I go back to the as sketched, I'm usually a lot happier. All right, so as I was saying, I want to use the symmetry, but as soon as I put in a second center line, so this one's just going to be for construction. I'll go from the origin to the midpoint, and we'll set it to be horizontal. Then I can mirror these guys. So select, control select, and then control select the center line. And we'll come up to the sketch, click on the tab, mirror the entities. All right, so that second center line is going to kind of confuse the revolve. So I will need to still set the axis of revolution when I get to that point. So 10, 16, and our diameters are, and I want to make sure to pick the center line. Well, I didn't put any object line in the middle there, so we have 10 for the diameter. And again, make sure that you're picking. Yeah, that one picked, but it didn't. So when you're placing, make sure that if you stay between the center line and the object you selected, you're going to get the radial. When you go to the other side, then you'll get the diametral. So 14, that gives me my geometry. I didn't put the object in the center, so it leaves it open. When I go to revolve, it's going to warn me the sketch is currently open. A non-thin revolution requires a closed sketch. Would you like the sketch to close automatically? In this case, yes. A lot of times I'll just go ahead and draw it. And then, like I said, we have two center lines, so it doesn't really know which one. This one would produce self-intersecting geometry, so it's not usable anyway. And when I pick that center line, then that's going to give me the desired result. All right, so a couple of options. I'm going to go ahead and save this as the pin and driver, since it's going to be inserted into the driver wheel. Probably could have called it a driver pin. I don't know. We may use that as a renaming example. If I come over to the solid bodies and hide, another option would be, we'll get into the sketch, and I need to, interesting, the planes did not come up. All right, so let's expand out, and I will pick the top plane. So not sure if that's because I changed my screen resolution or if I just went through the sequence a little bit different. All right, so if I create this as a 14 millimeter, and then Control 7, back into the features, extrude, and we're going to go 16 millimeters, mid-plane, and then open up a new sketch, Let's see, S key this time. And I know I'm jumping around with those a little bit. Hopefully you found one that you like. So 10 millimeters. And that stayed with sort of the linear distance. That's fine for the sketch. I don't really care that much, and the drawing might have a little more of a preference. So with the dimensions selected, I'll come over to the property manager, go to its leader, and then I can tell it's a diameter or switch it to radial. So you have those options to change the visibility. Control 7, and then right click and extrude, and then this will come out 10. And yes, we want to merge the result. We do not want separate bodies. And then opening up a sketch. The advantage of having existing geometry then is I can pick an edge, or I could pick that previous sketch and tell it to convert entities. So convert entities will take existing geometry and turn it into a sketch geometry in typically a new sketch. And then we'll go one more time with the extrude. 10 millimeters stayed, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. All right, so that gives me another option. And then just as a contrast, if I were to take those, let's highlight that real quick. One of the things I want to introduce or review is suppression state. So I'm considering this kind of a what-if scenario. The first revolve I did, I'm happy with. I don't need to do anything else with it. But notice that when I highlight this, let's go ahead and make sure you know where to find those. The dynamic reference for the parent and the child. And if those little, when they first introduced those little lines drove me crazy, now I just kind of glance at them and it's another visual clue on my screen. So the dashed line is the current selection. It's telling me that extrude 3 is a child and boss extrude 1 is a parent. So if I were to suppress this, it's automatically going to suppress extrude 3 because it is a child feature. So if I were to go back into my what if scenario and open a sketch on the top plane, and we'll go back into the S key, place a circle, add a dimension, and this time I'm not going to worry about it being a linear. Control 7 for isometric, features extrude, and this has an overall of 16 plus 20, so 36. And I want that to be mid-plane. And this will work because it's not a separate body. I'm merging the result, and a positive into a positive is no net gain on the mask properties. So it pretty much ignores everything in the center, and I can verify that I did my math correctly and get the 10 millimeters for the height. So again, just some basic options. If I go back and suppress boss extrude 1, everything gets suppressed. And this is where we can also manage our suppression states and the configurations if for some reason I wanted to have the revolve and then have some of these other geometries available to use. So we'll make sure to save this and call it good. So just notice that my part is still hidden. So the solid body that is actually the revolve would be nice to bring that back. So right click and a show and then a save, so that when I bring this into the assembly later on, I won't have what appears to be an empty part.